worship you for me, for all the things you've done for me, and no one can worship you for me. Here's my worship, all of my worship. Receive my worship, all of my worship. Here's my worship, all of my worship. Receive my worship, all of my worship. You, Lord, you are worthy, and no one can worship you for me. Oh, for all the things you've done for me, and no one can worship you for me. Here's my worship, all of my worship. Receive my worship, all of my worship. Here's my worship, all of my worship. Father, receive my worship, all of my worship. And I will not be silent. I will always worship you. As long as I am breathing, I will always worship you. And I will not be silent. I will always
Afrika Allah hai ye Murichayong
Africa, we are the last future. We are the still moment. We are the perpetual length of a timeless present. We are the words that have been spoken. Africa, rise up Africa. We are the truth that must be spoken. We are the length of a timeless journey. The description of an intention. We are the completion of history. There is no more transfer of prophecy, no more future. The unforeseeable creation. This is who we are, the prolonged cycle. Africa, arise! We must rise. Your time has come. Your moment of birth, your moment of conception is now. Africa, arise! Arise, Oyoyo Africa welcomes the sons and the daughters of Africa back to the lost identity of Africa. Brasata Baba Barita, Kalibu Santa Baba Yatalata, Africa! The rising of Africa is come. The time is now. Awake, all sons and daughters of prophecy. Africa, your time is now. Break forth from mediocrity. Break forth. The Creator's plan for Africa is a plan of good. Africa's dream sound brings healing to Africa. Africa! Time is now. Time is now. Time is now. Time is now. Yo 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 yo. Africa's dream sound is a sound that welcomes Africans back to Africa. Oh yo yo Africa. Africans have all left Africa. The beauty, the glory, the prophecy, the splendor, the fragrance, the music, the culture, the politics, the philosophy of Africa, the freshness of the hills of Africa, the jungles, the forests of Africa, the future hidden in our ignorance. Africans have been attracted to a world that surmises Africa. The ignorance over the existence of culture, identity, conscience, artistry, prophecy, originality, philosophy, creativity of Africa has blinded Africans from the beauty of Africa and so poised monotony and bruised the innocence of Africa. That is the beauty our mind touch, but our eyes cannot see, and so the body cannot feel. Africa's dream sound, Oyoyo Africa, welcomes Africans to the lost identity. It fosters a sense of an ancient identity of who we are and where we're going to. Africa. Africa has changed. Africa has changed. Only those who saw her, the ancient Africa, the nakedness, the pain, the scar, the moment of conception of Africa, the period of birth, and kept the power of her memory would remember Africa. Time is now, time is now. Time is now, Africa. Africa's beauty is in the memory. It's no more a reality. Africa's prophecy needs to be reawakened, re-emphasized, because Africa has become a drifting shadow. It has no shape and figure. Africa is turning into a wet color that is easy to blend with other colors. But Oyoyo Africa from Africa's dream sound rediscovers Africa, the beauty, the creativity, the originality, the politics, the prophecy, the ancient conscience of who we are and where we're going to. Oyoyo Africa rediscovers Africa. Can't you feel it? Africa, can't you feel it? It's her time. It's her time. The breeze of reformation is blowing. The disguise, the mask, the faces behind the mask, the unveiling of the cosmetic beauty of Africa is in process. Africa, arise! It is falling. The mask is falling. Because the breeze of prophecy is blowing. Gross darkness shall cover you.
Kingdom greetings to His Majesty Obadokun Thompson, President of AD, Africa Diaspora Development Initiative, Honorable Arikana Chihombori Kwao, Dr. Chisango, President of WEC, greetings to our GFWE International President, Dr. Pearl Coupe, our GFWE International Coordinator, Ms. Ufuoma Echepam, our GFWE Moderator, Mefikile Debo, and our GFWE Deputy President, Pastor Lula Makonza. A warm welcome to everyone and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Maschaba Mpete, GFWE Youth and Mental Projects Director. I'd like to just share with you a little bit briefly about what the GFWE Youth Leg is all about. GFWE Movers and Shakers is a youth movement that is aimed at building a generation of young people who are rooted in Kingdom business principles. We aim to direct young people to maximize their talents through innovative projects, strategies, and businesses. Since our inception, we have hosted a youth conference that has been able to tackle a variety of socioeconomic issues faced by the youth and also posed viable solutions for upcoming entrepreneurs. We'd like to encourage young people not only to join our Facebook page, but also work towards building a global movement of Kingdom trailblazers. Statistics state that almost 60% of Africa's population is under the age of 25, making Africa the world's youngest continent. According to the African Union's Youth Charter, Africa's youth is its biggest asset. Africa's youth population is rapidly growing and expected to double to over 830 million by 2050. Our role is to harness the potential of African youth, channel it into increased productivity, innovation, and economic growth across the continent. The majority of youth in Africa do not have stable economic opportunities. Of Africa's nearly 420 million youth aged between 15 and 35, 1/3 are unemployed and discouraged. Another third are vulnerably employed, and only 1 in 6 are in wage employment. Youth face roughly double the unemployment rate of adults, with significant variation by country. Therefore, it's imperative for the youth to become active participants in building innovative structures of businesses and projects that will not only sustain their livelihoods, but will also create lasting legacies for generations to come. The youth need to be at the center of solution-based dialogues on platforms such as this one, in a bid to be game changers and transformational leaders, not only in their countries, but in their immediate communities. Without taking too much time, I would like to introduce our moderator for this evening, Mefikile Debo, who has joined us solely for the purpose of moderation. She is a chartered certified accountant and a fellow of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. She is also a non-executive director on a number of boards and recognized in South Africa's most influential women coffee table book. Welcome, Mefikile, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Master Chaba. Thank you very much, Master Chaba. His Majesty, His Royal Majesty Obadokun Thompson, Her Excellency Ambassador Arigana Chihombori Kwao, Dr. Alex Chisango, and Ms. Ufuoma Ekpecham. A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. We are very pleased to have you with us this evening for our Redefining Africa in the 21st Century for Transformation conference. Before we start, I would like to just sort out a few housekeeping matters. One being, well, most importantly, just to advise you that this program is being recorded. And if you could, please remain on mute unless you are scheduled to speak. And again, it would help a great deal if your video is kept off. That'll help a lot with any possible interference. Thank you very much. We will later on have a period of questions, and we will guide you through what we would like to have during that time. Without I would like to just tell you a little bit more about the lady who spoke earlier, Ms. Masichaba Mpete. She is a television producer and entrepreneur in South Africa and a leading young person in the arts, entertainment, and media arena. She's the Global Forum of Women Entrepreneurs Youth Director, as she has mentioned, and she's responsible for mobilizing young women in the area of entrepreneurship. And I'm sure her passion was palpable. It is my absolute pleasure at this point to introduce our first speaker. We will have a number of speakers this evening. We have a panel from whom we can glean a lot, and we look forward to hearing from each of them. What we will do thereafter, towards the end, Dr. Pearl Coupe will speak to us about the way forward so that we do actually get to utilize the information that we will be getting this evening. May I introduce to you our first speaker, Ms. Ufuoma Ekpecham. She's a businesswoman, an entrepreneur of note. Originally from Nigeria, she's currently based in London, UK. She has been previously profiled in the Forbes Africa magazine as a leading entrepreneur in the fashion industry. She also functions as the international coordinator of the Global Forum of Women Entrepreneurs. Ms. Ekpecham.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me. His Royal Majesty Oba Dr. Johnson, Her Excellency Ambassador Arikana, Her Royal Highness Dr. Hassan Hasheba, Dr. Alex Shichango, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for having me. My name is Ufuoma Ekpecham. I'm the international coordinator for this wonderful initiative, the Global Forum for Women Entrepreneurs. I'm just going to briefly just tell you what Global Forum for Women Entrepreneurs is all about, and just a little bit of what we've achieved in a couple of, 3 years of in existence. So for most people that don't know what GFW stands for, we founded 3 years ago to respond to the need to cultivate, to develop, to enhance the entrepreneurial mindset of women across the globe. It's a global network that believes that when women are properly groomed and included in the areas of investment, trading, finance, that they will be a great asset to the community and to everyone. Our aims and objectives and missions are achieved through training. Through training, I just want to just quickly see if I can share my screen here. Can the host please allow me to just share my screen? Is it okay? Okay, so I just want to briefly just tell us, I think I have just 10 minutes. I just want to run quickly about what GFW, Global Forum for Women Entrepreneurs, what is all about, our journey, our chapters, our projects, and our achievements over the last 3 years that we've been in existence. So many people don't believe that Global Forum for Women Entrepreneurs is just 3 years old because of the huge achievement and the landmarks that we've covered in just 3 years. Like I said, Global Forum is a forum of network of business women across the globe. And our aim, really, our mission and objective is determined through training, equipping, networking women in areas around the globe, especially in Africa, and in particular in the areas of entrepreneurship, integrating entrepreneurial options for women that can be accessed through innovative means, ensuring that women are part of the 21st century innovation and technology, giving back initiative through humanitarians and community development, which is really very close to our heart as a Global Forum Women Entrepreneur. And we do a lot of mentorship. There's a lot of mentorship opportunities and networking between business owners across the different countries where Global Forum has been established. In the short time that we've been in existence, we have chapters in the United Kingdom, of course, where I am now. In South Africa, we have so many different sub chapters in South Africa. We have chapters in Malawi. We have chapters in Botswana, in Namibia, in Zambia, in Zimbabwe. And of course, we're going to be, in the near future, we're going to be having chapters in the West African countries of Nigeria and Ghana. Nigeria and Ghana. And in the 3 years where Global Forum has been founded, we're particularly, I know our international president, Dr. Pearl, and all the executive council, we're particularly very proud of the achievement that we've achieved as an organization, because it's not just, there are lots of other organizations out there that just bring women together, but this particular group of women actually come together to make things happen. And part of the achievement is the monthly training that focused on depth financial management and entrepreneurial issues. The Alexandria Feeding Project, which feed 1,200 school children in partnership with the South African government every year. In Malawi, we've been able to establish the Educated Child Project, sponsoring 200 school children per year. Also in Malawi, the Chief Teresa Kachindumoto and Child Marriage Project is there. This particularly is very close to our heart. We know what it is, the girl-child, girl-child marriage. GFW have also been able to empower widows by training them and giving them skills, which includes the water project, where they are being taught how to filter water, either for personal use or for business use. Let's not forget about the anti-trafficking project that the GFW undergoed. The Entrepreneur of the Year campaign, which is on right now, is still very much going on now. The GFW PE School Children Project, the GFW, the Adopt a Mamelodi Family Project, and also the GFW South Africa Relief Project. We have some other project that is going on. We have our annual GFW awards, which identify and recognize community builders and national leaders on every level. In London, we know we're doing the business funding for SME startup. That's something that is really very close to our heart here in the London chapter of GFW, and we do a lot of business mentoring, a lot of people that want to get started on their small business startup, most small, medium business startup. We mentor a lot of them. So mentoring is really, really very, very, very important in GFW, in mentoring people to bring them, to make them come into the woman, the business person, the entrepreneur that God has ordained them to be. So our future projects also include the GFW Investment Fund. I'm sure our president, Dr. Coupe, is going to speak a lot about that maybe very soon. And we are also going to get into the agricultural farming project, which is one of the very key projects that we're going to be entering very soon. Those are the future projects that we're going to join. We're going to start commencing very soon. I know that a lot of people, this is just to introduce you and whet your appetite, so that you know that GFW is not just women that come together to just have tea and scones and coffee. There's nothing wrong with that, but these are serious-minded women that really want to make a change, that really want to groom you and make you become the entrepreneur that God has ordained for you to be. So if there's any question about how to become a member, what you have to do, the website is really loaded, where you can have every question answered. Our dedicated team people are always ready to answer you. The website, just to become a member, to be part of our event, to get to know more. I mean, if you want to give to any of our projects, giving back, if that is what suits you. Volunteering your time and resources, sowing into the project financially. Check out our website, is gfw. I don't know, maybe we'll put it in the chat very soon too. It's a gfw.co.za. Information, emails can be sent to info@gfw.co.za. It's a privilege to be the international coordinator of this wonderful initiative, and I don't take it lightly. I want to invite you to be part of this movement. It's a movement. GFW is a movement, and I know that is a forum that is going places, that is going to be spoken about in places in every country of the world. So thank you so much for having me, and welcome once again to the GFW International Africa Annual Conference. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ekpacham. And I'm sure you heard there's a lot that GFWE is doing, and we will have a short video to give us an idea as to what it is, some of the stuff that is going on within GFWE. And as has been mentioned, additional information is available on the website. If you could go to www.gfwe.co.za, you will get a lot more information there. And hopefully the video is ready to air right now. And that'll just give you a taste.
Africa, unite, 'cause we're moving right out of Babylon.
Thank you for that video. It's amazing that so much has been done in just 3 years, and much more in the pipeline, as has been mentioned. And do have a look at the website and see how you can be a part of giving back. It is my privilege right now and my pleasure to welcome His Royal Majesty, Oba Dokun Thompson. He's the Oloni of Etioni and a unique regional traditional ruler. He's the first traditional ruler in Nigeria to be installed inside the church, according to the scriptures. He's chairman of Etioni Development Group, the organizers of the annual Cocoa Festival and Echo Chocolate Show in Nigeria. He's also founder of African Natural Rulers, ANR, an initiative started in 2015, which is focused on redefining Africa to address the issues of conflict, poverty, health, education, housing, and environment to achieve sustainable primary socio-economic development, particularly in rural areas. His Majesty is the chairperson of the Global Forum of Women Entrepreneurs International Advisory Board. Your Majesty.
Thank you, Fikile. Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Majesty.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Well, growing up, whenever Africa was mentioned, a poem came to mind, and I am sure we can all recite the poem as I did then. It was called Africa, My Africa. Africa of proud warriors in ancestral savannas. On the banks of the distant river, I have never known you, but your blood flows in my veins. Your beautiful black blood that irrigates the fields. And it went on and on. It was written by David Diop. The topic for this evening is a very critical one as it probes into our origin as a people, to know who we are and where we're coming from, so that we can begin to channel a definite and well-defined path as to where we are now and where we should be going. Your Excellency, Ambassador Dr. Arikana, and keynote speaker for the evening, the President of GFWE, Dr. Belkupe, other speakers this evening, members of GFWE, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. We all know that the world has defined Africa by the several and different forms of disunity and challenges. Xenophobic attacks on brothers, genocide due to differences in ethnicity or religious ideologies, numerous health epidemics and problems faced daily by Africans, issues of hygiene and environmental degradation, girl-child abuse and illiteracy, wars and further threats of war, worsening social and economic conditions, poverty in the midst of plenty, inhabitable dwellings and the complete collapse of our cherished values, dwindling ability and lack of capacity to acquire and improve on skills for economic empowerment and technology advancement. But I hope that by the end of today, we would have been able to correctly define Africa for ourselves. First, to correct the several misunderstandings of who an African is. Secondly, how an African sees and understands the rest of the world. And thirdly, what the rest of the world needs to know about modern Africa to positively engage Africa to achieve lasting peace and sustainable development. Great nations are built on solid and sustainable foundations, and having a good understanding of their weaknesses and strengths, challenges and opportunities, as well as their knowledge of lack of or availability of resources, both human and non-human, and putting together very robust, dynamic, and strategic development plans taking into consideration every aspect and all factors, while everyone, both young and old, work conscientiously to achieve the plan as their corporate goal or vision. Africa has very rich and powerful culture, which is at the very root and foundation of the several identities of our many peoples, similar to the many different people across different geographical locations around the world. These differences in several ways gave rise to bilateral trade, strong global economies, the need for global cultural exchanges that led to tourism, modern education, and even advance in technology developments, with the world described as a global village. On the other side, these differences in culture or creed have been the very source of sorrows, hate, oppression, and wars, when not necessarily discussed and pursued for the mutual benefit of all. The question I want to ask Africa or Africans is, why do we still live in the past of the colonial era? We need to live in the present for a better future. The United States of America was also a colony of Britain, but today they are the most powerful nation on earth by simply defining who they were by themselves. And there was nothing wrong with that. A nation must have an identity, and their culture defines who they are. And today, the United States remain the closest ally to Britain till date. On the 1st of January 2021, the African Continental Free Trade Area was launched. It has created the opportunity to have one of the largest common markets in the world, with over 1.3 billion people to trade amongst themselves without any barriers. We must by ourselves pull down the Franco-Anglo or Spanish divides that had been operated since the colonial era and still being operated under several treaties, if we are to optimize the potentials after offers and realize the full benefit for the good of all. In concluding, there is a saying in Africa that translates to mean, it is from within that beauty can be displayed outwardly, or before any public display of one's goodness, such a person must ensure that the home front is well taken care of. In other words, you cannot give what you do not have. But I know that every African has a lot to give. So let's come together to give our all. An African is always hospitable to visitors, welcoming to strangers, displaying brotherly love to one another. A whole community takes up the responsibility of looking out for the good of a child and even contributes to educate a child irrespective of gender. Unity was our watchword, and contempt for leadership was incomprehensible, while disrespect for elders was an abomination. The family structure was sacrosanct and respected, and we were taught that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And most important, our love and worship of God should be in spirit and in truth. That was Africa. And even today, we see Africans excelling in different fields across the globe. What is required is to translate these individual pursuits into one wholesome solution that will eventually transform our communities to be a blessing to the world, which is our God-ordained position from creation and not a place of exploitation. I trust this evening we will learn more and hear more from the other speakers. I wish you all a very good evening and declare the conference open. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Majesty, for those opening remarks. We are indeed a rich, diversified continent and with many cultures that we can all benefit from. Thank you so much for emphasizing the fact that every African has a lot to give. We each have a role to play to make a difference. Thank you very much. We do at this point have another short clip to share with you, which I believe would benefit everybody.
I got Womp on the beat.
must be the environment and the fundamental pillars that must be secured in order for business development to happen, agricultural development to happen, healthcare and wellness of the population, housing, and such other desirable aspects of development. There must be the environment that guarantees that you will succeed. This is a fundamental issue, brothers and sisters, that must be addressed. This is why I believe the conveners and hosts of us today were felt led to make sure that we've got an accurate theme which takes us and calls us firstly to redefinition before we just run all over to try and do interventions and implementations of projects. So there are so many things that went wrong. Let me just zero in a few minutes in the analysis of, for example, wealth creation. I would have expected, under normal circumstances, if everything was okay in Africa, we would have been given a theme here, a theme, for example, to say redefining business in Africa or redefining entrepreneurship and so forth, in line with the trajectory of the organization. But why is it that instead of talking about that, instead of talking about casual business, we have been summoned to redefine Africa itself? We have to redefine the context, the environment where we intend to do business. Why is it all our business plans, most of them, they come to naught, most of them, they just die at SME level, and they don't become an economy, they don't become global corporations, they don't become businesses that can command attention and respect in different parts of the world. So we want to therefore address this matter to say, in terms of analysis, there are a few points that I noted down. Those few points, we ought to be consciously addressing them. Number one is that, you see, we cannot simply be seized with doing business in Africa in an environment that is disorganized, in an environment that we don't control, in an environment that we don't own. In other words, we can't succeed in business if the playing ground and the playing ground itself is foreign to us. It is not our home ground. Now, we have got a continent, we've got a people, we've got a land, we've got rivers and mountains and resources and such other would have been such other things and elements that would have been very good ingredients for entrepreneurship and business success. But the bottom line is that the whole situation has been so messed up that it's not our home ground. It's like trying to play soccer in the Arctic region or Antarctic region, the region that is full of snow, and yet you come from West Africa where the heat is the order of the day. So it's not your home ground, and you are going to lose the soccer before you get started, because the terrain was not really cultured for you, and you were not cultured for the terrain. So Africa needs reculture. So I'm really wanting to really say we cannot run away. One of the misgivings of African entrepreneurs is that they are predominantly illiterate about Africa. They are ignorant even about their countries. They don't understand the policies that are either shaping or disrupting their enterprises, and they do not participate in the formation of those things, and they do not participate in influencing the direction of those policies, and they have no connectivity whatsoever with the policy formations. And this is before I also tell us to say we have just abandoned our countries and abandoned even our governments to helpless control by monopolies and global monopolies and entities, and we do not do anything beyond casting the vote in the ballot box once in 5 years. We are not part of the governance. We are not part of the policy making. We are distant, and we just throw in that one paper called the ballot paper, and then we expect that ballot paper to become a magic wand, and we sit there for the next 5 years. And for the next 5 years, we stand also in bewilderment and total consternation when nothing is working in our favor, because we do not understand the ropes and the dynamics and the terrain within which African countries are operating. So Africa was designed and it was crafted in such a way that it must be a service provider to foreign powers. It must be a service provider to faraway continents and nations, its resources, whether you're talking of transportation in Africa, or you're talking of telecommunications, or you're talking of education, everything was made to worship foreign entities, and to worship and glorify foreign locations, and to serve and to bow down to those things. Railway was not introduced in Africa in order to cause the Africa continental free trade area to happen. The kind of railways that we did have was really to connect us in order so that the goods and the resources that we produce must be shipped out as raw materials, not as processed products. And this is why in entrepreneurship, we must now desire to address this matter, to make sure that there is a value addition, there is manufacturing in Africa that happens, so that we can establish factories and entities of innovation, so that we take to the world something that we have fully processed, right? So we need to also understand that I was reading with quite some sheer intrigue and anger. In January 2014, Oxfam International, they produced a report. It's entitled "Working for the Few," and that report was indicating how 85, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 85 of the richest people on earth, 85 people, their income and their assets and belongings, they were equivalent to that which is owned by 50% of the whole world, which means 85 people were owning half of the global cake, and then the rest of the people were then sharing the other half of the global cake. And then when it came to investigation to find out why is that disparity so, it was then discovered that there's a common denominator whereby those 85 richest people in the world at that time in January 2014, those people were highly connected to governments. So governments, one place or the other, were either serving the interests of business and not business as a whole, but serving the interests of the top entrepreneurs. In other words, some of the top entrepreneurs, they even decide who must rule on their behalf in particular countries. And then they also decide how many people must vote for their own selected and elected candidate. And the people simply go out there, after thorough and effective manipulation and propaganda, they go out there to queue, thinking that it is themselves that are deciding what must happen, but the decision has been made, and the rest of the other people have been made to become unfit and incompetent and unqualified for the game, because resources were deprived them, regardless of how good their agenda and manifesto were. So these are things that scientifically and empirically, it has been proven that there are so many, governments where leaders, sometimes what they say during the campaign, it's not what they will do in action, because they are not the ones that will set the agenda when they are now in office. The agenda is set by those that are controlling the capital. So we need to understand these dynamics so that in entrepreneurship, if we are going to be serious, unless if we just love to be relegated to the peripheries and to the fringes of what is supposed to be actually ours. We therefore want to go further and interrogate this matter to say, how can we cross over? Now, this is why we have got very timely organizations and bodies, like one of these bodies that has gathered us in this conference today, Global Forum on Women, or women entrepreneurs. Why is it not just, for example, just simply African Forum? Why does it have to be Global Forum? Now, one of the challenges that has weakened African entrepreneurs, not just entrepreneurs, but even governments and citizens, is because Africa does not have global institutions. It does not have institutions that speak with authority, shoulder to shoulder, globally, and get heard. So most of the formal institutions that have been running this world, especially prior to COVID and up until now, most of those institutions were not shaped by Africa, and they were not shaped for Africa. Tell me about the World Trade Organization. It has been a pure demonstration of how Africa does not own and how Africa is not a shareholder in such a body, to the extent that even when Madam, Her Excellency, Dr. Ikwejo from Nigeria, the former finance minister, even when she proved herself beyond any reasonable doubt that she was the most fit candidate for the Director Generalship of World Trade Organization, yes, having passed through all the rituals and the processes of selection, one country, the United States of America, under President Donald Trump during that time, was simply giving a veto to say, we don't regard the selection, we don't regard the voting, we don't regard the consensus. One country has veto power, and your crime is that you are an African, meaning simply to say there was mistrust there to say we did not form the World Trade Organization to serve really the world, but to serve Western interests. And so why are you putting this woman there? That was the issue. If there had not been the Black Lives Matter movement, Her Excellency, Madam Dr. Ikwejo would never, even the Joe Biden administration would never have lifted that veto to allow that woman to take that post. It tells you that World Trade Organization is simply Western trade organization, trade in favor of the West, and we are not equal partners there. Talk about international finance corporation, International Monetary Fund, World Bank. The names are good, World Bank, international, in brackets, Monetary Fund. But really, it's not about us, United Nations. The terminologies and nomenclature is good, but it's not ours. It's not ours. That is why we are the largest continent in the earth, but we don't have, we are not part of the United Nations Security Council. We are not trusted, and we are viewed as not trustworthy. We are viewed as, minors who must be safeguarded and guarded by those who are majors. And right. So these kinds of things, they then speak to us to say, we have got to support, we have got to create, we have got to support global organizations, global platforms that also come out of Africa, not to revenge, not to repeat, not to replace, but to represent the authentic interests that the people of Africa and the God of justice is also releasing in the world on behalf of justice and on behalf of the righteousness that must be executed. So this is why this forum begins to be very, very important. And I want to nudge and exhort us to step up and escalate our agendas and our dialogues and our discourse. I'm so happy that there's going to be dialogue time, a little bit, a few minutes during this conference. We must escalate our dialogue. We must escalate our agenda so that we don't waste time talking petty issues. Sometimes, even the way that we spend time in fighting among ourselves, we're actually fighting among ourselves over change. We're not really fighting amongst ourselves over wealth, because the real wealth is being siphoned out. Africa is losing every year wealth and resources that are more than twice the amount of what we are supposedly receiving as donations. So the discourse and the discussion must be, as entrepreneurs, what kind of entrepreneurship are we talking about? Why don't we start to have entrepreneurs that can say, okay, 5 of us, 20 of us, 100 of us, 1,000 of us, we are going to come together and now build a railway system, maybe from Cape to Cairo, for the Africa Continental Free Trade Area to function, maybe from East Africa to West Africa, and so forth, so that we truly can begin to, I was concerned just this morning, or it's when I was looking at how recently we adopted the Treaty of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, 1st January, it came into force 2021. But sooner that, we haven't finished 4 months, we have not finished the first term of the year. Now there is silence on the continent. TV stations, they are busy talking about gossip. Newspapers are talking about gossip. They are not decoding, they are not breaking this thing down to be understood in schools, to be understood even in parliaments, to be understood in the media and the information spaces, so that Africans can actually start to trade amongst ourselves. So I just want to really round off this thing by bringing us to the attention of the fact that as Africa, we must really consider, as African entrepreneurs, we must consider strengthening structures that can give us stature, and so that strategies that come from amongst ourselves can have continent-wide impact as well as global impact. Because there are certain things that you cannot control in Africa unless you are also at the platform where the agenda that controls the world is set. Because right now I feel pity for most people that are in parliaments, because they are there, but really countries have lost the sovereign capacity to be able to shape what they want and to do what they must be able to do, because they may say the right thing politically and in terms of regulations, but the finance, the budget, the fiscus is not controlled, the capital is not in their hands. So all those plans, they come to nothing. All those legislations, they come to nothing, because it will just simply not be funded, because money is controlled elsewhere, including our own money is controlled from elsewhere. So these are some of the issues. I know that a conference taking place over a period of 2 hours, we can only cover so much, but I want to trust that this is just a trigger to discuss, a trigger to introspect, as well as a trigger to truly redefine Africa in the 21st century, because we cannot keep on doing the same thing over and over and over and expect that when another global crisis hits, we are going to survive. We want to thank God and for his grace that we are not destroyed. We are still alive 14 months after COVID started. I really, really believe that if something that is in the ecosystem of God had not taken control to restrain what COVID was supposed to become and to do, the carnage, the genocides that it was supposed to cause, the attrition in Africa, we would not have been, sitting on this platform tonight. Many people would have, many more people would have been wiped out. But I really believe we've been given another window to survive again, in order to replan, in order to rethink, and in order to react. I want to just close by letting us, really understand that we need to think seriously. For example, right now we've got the insurgency that has recently taken off in Cabo Delgado province, northern region of Mozambique. Entrepreneurs cannot be aloof and standing in the terraces in terms of staying away from introspecting and investigating in our own way, in our own corridor and domain to find out what is it that is happening. Is it just, is love for military and militant fanaticism? What are the other underlying issues? Who owns northern Mozambique? Who owns, Cabo Delgado province? Who owns the gas? Who owns the oil? Who owns all those promising treasures that are being, really discovered there? Where is the place of Mozambican entrepreneurs in the whole story? Because otherwise, our countries start becoming the fighting ground for global powers. With their wars, they play themselves on our ground because we are aloof, because we are not taking charge. So my clarion appeal to us here is to say, we need entrepreneurs that take charge of nations, take charge of communities, take charge of bringing discussion and debate to a level where we can actually, as business people, shape and participate in reshaping the future of this beautiful continent. We can't call ourselves entrepreneurs when we are actually just extortioners of money who are just looking for how customers can give us money and how poor people can, take money from their pockets and give us, and we call ourselves entrepreneurs. We can't be just extensions of neo-colonialists. We can't just be extensions of colonial and global looters of Africa. We can't replicate that model in Africa. That must stop. The year to stop it is now. The year for Africa to produce entrepreneurs that are liberators of Africa, that year is now. I may want to remind you that those who carried out the slave trade and slavery, those people in their countries, they were entrepreneurs. That was their form of entrepreneurship. The scramble for Africa, it was their form of entrepreneurship to enrich their people. Where are our entrepreneurs today? Or we are just simply CEOs who are not the owners of what we are driving. May God change that narrative. May God raise us up and stir us up from stupor and slumber that covers African entrepreneurs. Thank you so much, Dr. Pearl, the president of our forum here. Thank you so much, my colleagues, the panelists, and we can always engage these matters during the course of the dialogue. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We can only cover so much now. Our time is limited, but thank you so much.
Allah. Thank you so much, Dr. Chisango. And as Dr. Pearl would say, Kina go. This indeed is the time for change. And it is not said idly. It is indeed. Thank you so much for stating that this theme is not just a theme, but it is indeed timely. It is time for Africa, as you say, to consciously address, I like that very much, the environment in which Africa does business, how Africa does business, and with whom Africa does business. And the entrepreneurs need to stand up. Thank you ever so much, Dr. Chisango. We will at this point have a short video. It will be just about a minute. And I'm very happy to say that Her Excellency, the ambassador, is with us this evening. She will speak immediately after that. Thank you very much.
Redefining Africa. What an interesting theme, what a fabulous theme. And there are essentially two aspects to redefining Africa. Number one is who is telling the narrative? Who's speaking about the story of Africa? There's an African proverb that says, until the lion learns how to write, the hunter will always be glorified in the story. So redefining Africa is also about who's telling the narrative. And it's time Ginako, it's time for we Africans to be able to tell our own narrative. The second critical thing about redefining Africa is around the story. So the first thing is about who's telling the story, and the second point is about what is the story. And the narrative of Africa has been a story of poverty, a story of famine, a story of disease, a story of all sorts of things, corruption. And again, it's time that we tell our own story. The story of the fabulous, amazing wealth, the resources of Africa, the medical solutions of Africa, the culture of Africa, the Ubuntu of Africa, the landscapes of Africa, and the beautiful people of Africa. Redefining Africa. It's time to tell our own story and to tell it the right way. Ginako. Let's redefine Africa in the 21st century for transformation.
Thank you, Dr. Pearl. Ginako indeed. It is my pleasure and privilege to invite our keynote speaker this evening, Her Excellency Arikana Chihombori Kwao, and she's a medical doctor by training and an activist. She's a public speaker, educator, diplomat, founder of medical clinics, and an entrepreneur. In 2017, she was appointed the African Union representative to the US. She's outspoken about the implications of the Berlin Conference that took place in Berlin, Germany in 1885, and lectures about the outcome of the divisions of the continent of Africa. She sees these divisions as a cause of some of Africa's problems that are still in effect today. She seeks to reunite African states and Africans in the diaspora. She's currently president of ADDI, the Africa Diaspora Development Initiative. Welcome, Ambassador.
Thank you, my sister. To Dr. Pearl Coupe, to Dr. Chisango, to the wonderful organizers of this wonderful, wonderful program. Thank you for having me. Dr. Chisango, what a presentation. You really took us on a journey for introspection. You took us to school. You educated us about the things that we sometimes are not even aware that they're going on. This is a conversation that is definitely timely. It is a conversation that is definitely needed. Your presentation has gotten me to readjust what I wanted to speak about. As I was listening to you, I kept questioning myself. When you look at some of the obvious low-hanging fruits or issues that we could have addressed as Africans, for example, if you just look at it from a bird's eye view of Africa, why do we, to this day, still need visas to go from one part of Africa to the other? Why are we still struggling with the simple issue of trading with each other as African nations? Why, even after we have proclaimed and the heads of states have agreed on a decision which we're now calling the African Continental Free Trade Area, why aren't we talking about it? I was in Addis Ababa initially when the African Continental Free Trade Area was approved. Oh, we had beautiful celebration on the stage, and the stage was decorated in white. It was wonderful. So I just knew by the time I got to my hotel room, the media is gonna be all over it, talking about the African Continental Free Trade Area. Well, guess what? There was nothing. When they launched the African Continental Free Trade Area, same thing. I expected fanfare, televisions talking about it, giving us the history, reminding us that what had just been accomplished is what the Pan-African fathers had wanted back in 1963, when they met and came up with a compromise decision called OAU. What they had accomplished was the beginning of the finishing the unfinished business that our Pan-African fathers started. How monumental is that? The approval of the African Continental Free Trade Area is probably one of the best decisions that has happened to Africa since the invaders from the West landed on our beloved continent. Where then is the excitement from the Africans? When they were putting together the European Union, it was blow by blow every day, every television station for years. They educated their people, they educated the world about the European Union, what it meant to you. When it comes to us Africans, I suppose we are waiting for them to toot the horn for us. So as I was listening to Dr. Chisango, all those things were running through my head. Low-hanging fruits, things that we can change. For example, the educational system. Why are most schools, most countries still using the old colonial textbooks? This only takes the Minister of Education to simply say, we are changing the educational system, Mr. President, and this is how we are going to do it. It's not happening. We were flying to go from one part of Africa to the other. We got to go to Europe only to come back into the other part of Africa. Insanity of the highest order, because the airspaces above the countries were closed. It takes the parliament sitting down. It takes the government sitting down and talking. This is insanity. Open the skies. The children of Africa must be free to travel and roam around their own Africa. That we can do. It simply takes people with like mind, people who understand what is really going on. Why have we allowed World Bank and other financial institutions to continue to now use Africans who work for the World Bank, and they're the ones that are being sent to Africa to give or to advise these African countries to implement these horrible policies that are designed to keep Africa under their knees. It's now our people know that. So for those who are in positions of power, the question that was going through my head is, why aren't they doing something about it? And of course, that's when I re-strategized my speech. I felt that I should concentrate on the genesis of why the African mind is where the African mind is. Because until we understand that we're actually part of that process, part of that agenda of keeping us where we are, nothing we do is gonna change. We can come up with all kinds of policies, but if those people who are going to go to the boardroom table are still asleep, garbage in, garbage out. If the people that are going to the boardroom table still feel inferior to our brothers, white brothers and sisters, nothing is gonna change. Because when it's all said and done, if you wanna know where the problem is, look in the mirror. It's you, it's me, because we're still fast asleep. Things are not happening in a vacuum. So how do we begin to undo centuries of brainwashing? Allow me to take you back to Africa over 400 years ago, over 600 years ago. Long before the Portuguese came to Africa, we were an amazing continent. We are the mothers and fathers of humanity. And especially you Black women, without you, there wouldn't be humanity as we know it. Therefore, it is my humble opinion that every human being must get up every morning, get on their knees, and thank the Black woman. Because without us, you wouldn't be. That was the Africa we knew. The Africa that was once the center of the world. The Africa that told the world what it means to be civilized, what it means to be human. Until the invaders from the West came. And they stole all the civilizations, began the process of brainwashing us, because they just knew if they can get us from the mind, defeat us from the mind, that was the only way they could defeat and take over this amazing continent with everything and anything they could ever need. So the genesis of the destruction of the mind, the destruction of the African, that has led us to where we are today, where we are incapable of defending ourselves, even when things are so blatantly wrong. We seem scared to speak up. They destroyed us where it mattered the most. Allow me to talk about our issues and speak of the African tree of life, the Garden of Eden that was once Africa, the tree that gave out grateful trees, fruits and beautiful flowers, delicious fruits, the tree that is no more. It is now an ailing tree, but it's better late than never. We must resurrect the African tree. So allow me to highlight some of the issues Dr. Chisango spoke about, but I'm going to divide them into two groups now. Kind of like look at it as I'm putting a bow over the issues that we talked about and summarize all of our issues for the betterment and easiness of understanding and appreciation where everything fits in. Think of Africa as a tree. Our anthem talks about the African tree of life. We have issues above the ground on this tree, and we got issues below the ground on this tree. It is imperative that you understand those issues that are above the ground, that if we do not address the issues below the ground, nothing we do above the ground is going to succeed. We must understand the issues below the ground. Sadly, those are the issues quite often we don't hear about. You talk about Africa, first thing that comes out is corruption, as if the conversation should end there. They talk about poverty, disease, and starvation, and hunger, poor healthcare, poor education, poor infrastructure. Who is ultimately responsible for the underdevelopment of our beloved continent? So yes, we do have issues of corruption. We have poor leadership. Who doesn't? Which country doesn't have corruption? Yes, we do have that too in Africa. Yes, we have issues of poor healthcare, poor education, poor infrastructure. And yes, people are dying of disease and starvation. But those are all issues above the root. They're the leaves and the flowers and the branches and the barks of this tree. If we can only address the issues of the root, what is going on in the root of this tree that's making this tree to ail year in and year out, no matter what we do, we can change leaders all we want, change leaders like we change clothes until we address the issues of the root. Nothing above the root is going to change. In order to address Africa's issues in a pivotal, sustainable way, we must understand the issues of the root. Allow me to list at least 6 of those in my humble opinion. One, and it is number 1 in my humble opinion, the issue of the mind. We were defeated where it matters the most. Until we can wake up and realize that we are suffering from the legacy of slavery and colonization. And my favorite one is the one that we don't even talk about. The systems and methods they use to brainwash the African. This issue of Black people and white people. Before the colonizers came to Africa, they weren't called white. They didn't call themselves white. They had no color. We didn't have a color either. But they used the color Black and the color white to begin to introduce self-hate to Black people. They used Christianity. They took the good book and misrepresented it when they came to Africa. They told us about a place called heaven, where there are angels. And by the way, they happen to be white, just like us. And they said there's a place called hell, where there's a mean devil there. And that devil, you must run away from there. And by the way, that devil is Black, just like you. So while we may not look like this white tablecloth, while we may not look like this white piece of paper that we just told you it is white, never mind what we told you. We are white like the angels. And we are pure and we are desirable. And And you, while you may not look like this black tablecloth, like the black piece of paper, never mind that. You are black like the devil. You cannot be trusted. We must run away from you if we run into you in an alley, because you represent the devil. What's really amazing, my brothers and sisters, is we said, okay, we are black and you're white, okay. Centuries ago, a blatant, cold lie. We have never undone it. They taught us to go to church, get on our knees and pray to the white angels, pray to a white Jesus, who we know very well was not white. He had hair like wool, crimson skin. When Mary and Joseph were running away from King Herod, they were told to go hide in Egypt. Why Egypt? Because in Egypt, he would blend with others who looked like him. If he was white, they could have sent him to Europe. So as we get on our knees, that subliminal messages of denouncing the devil who they told us looks like us, and wishing to be like the angels who we can never be like in terms of the color. So you gotta be white to be an angel. It is deep, my brothers and sisters. If you step outside right now, go and talk to the first 10 people that you meet and ask them what color is the angel. I can tell you 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, I'm gonna tell you what, without thinking. You step outside and ask the first 10 people, what color is the devil? 9 out of 10 would tell you black without thinking. Who has died and gone to heaven and seen white angels? Who has died and gone to hell and seen a black devil? Being an angel or a devil is based on deeds. I like to say the police officer who's nailed on George Floyd for 9 minutes and 29 seconds is the personification of a devil. Color has nothing to do with it. That is issue number one. This is where they got us. The issue of the self-hate, it germinates. Its genesis goes back to the missionaries who were sent to subdue us, get us where we need to be before the real thieves came behind. Understand that genesis, and it'll be easier for you to undo it. You are not inferior to anybody. In fact, you should be put on the tallest pedestal because you are the origin of humanity. But no, 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 no. That cannot be well. Let me tell you this, my brothers and sisters, you don't need anybody to put you on a pedestal. Put yourself there because you belong there. When we understand what has been done to us, the destruction of the mind, when we can have a conversation with the image in the mirror and let that image understand nobody is superior to you and you are not inferior to anybody. The criminalization of Black people is part of that global strategy. Are you going to fall for that lie? Are you going to continue to victimize yourself and generations to come? Or are we going to be the generation that says we know the truth? We have been fast asleep, but we can see clearly now. We know who we are. No one is superior to us, and we are not inferior to anybody. That's issue number one, in my opinion. When the African is awoken, when the African understands who they are, when the African is confident about what we can accomplish, it doesn't matter where we end up. President of a country, chairman of a Fortune 500, working for the World Bank, we're always going to have the courage to stand up and speak truth to power. That is what we are not doing. If we as Africans can just speak truth to power when we are in positions of leadership, this game can be dealt with in a very short order. They laugh at us, my brothers and sisters, and I'm talking truth from meetings that I've sat in myself. When leaders get insulted, you're representing a country, why do you allow another representative of another country to yell at you and you say nothing? That is what I'm talking about, the mind. until we're able to stand up and push back and fight back, it doesn't matter how much education we get. It doesn't matter how much planning, policy making we have. At the end of the day, the implementers are human beings, you and I. Are we awoken enough to push back, stand up, and defend our turf? The mind. And that's where it begins. Issue number 2, in my humble opinion, the Berlin Conference. After they have defeated us in our minds, the children of Africa, when they were taken out of Africa as slaves, they were already defeated. They were already brainwashed. They did not believe in ourselves. We believed everything European was better. The path, the journey for running away from everything to do with us, that process had already begun and it was in full force. So after the mind, they went for the physical structure of our beloved continent. Spent 4 months in cold Berlin weather, strategizing on how to see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated and dominated. I would like to underscore that. They spent 4 months in the cold Berlin winter, strategizing on how to see to it that Africa and her children at home and abroad are forever defeated and dominated. So for those who like to call Berlin Conference a piece of history, I got news for you. Berlin Conference is alive and well. As long as poor Djibouti has to go to the world market to trade with the United States, as long as Togo has to go to the world market to trade with China, as long as Malawi goes to the world market to trade with European Union, Berlin Conference is alive and well. You understand why they spent those 4 months and the decisions they made during those 4 months. You can begin to understand why Africa is where Africa is today. Who creates a country like Central African Republic? It's equivalent to one of the US states. Oh no, but you're a country. You got the same sovereignty as the big boys. Go fight. You understand the Berlin Conference, you're on your way to understanding your Africa. Berlin Conference is alive, and we must destroy and bury the Berlin Conference. And that means serious understanding of the geopolitics. Issue number 3. You see, during colonization, if you were ruled by the British, all decisions came from London. If you were colonized by the French, decisions came from Paris and the various capitals in Europe. Guess what happens during liberation in the 50s and 60s? They simply gave us this limited political liberation. And I say limited because Dr. Chisango described it very nicely for you, that they know who they want to be the next leader. And we think we are going to vote for our leader. The game is won and we are defeated before the game even begins. So it is, they gave us limited political liberation. But what they never gave us was economic liberation. Remember those multinational companies that were already operating in all those African countries? If you were a British colony, they were British companies. If you were a French colony, they were French companies. If you were Portuguese, if you were Spanish, Italian, Germany, those companies never left. They just lay low. They just kept on continuing with their exploitation, siphoning Africa's wealth, safe havens, taking all their money into safe havens. Even when they could easily do what they do legally, they still get involved in illegal mining, illegal trade in wildlife, in fish, in exotic plants. It's like the thievery is endless. Trillions of dollars have been coming out of Africa since colonization, and that has never been disrupted. Those colonizers have never left. And that is why even an average African leader They can't say boo to the multinationals. They will not win the next election. The colonizers have never left Africa. Until we can own the pillars of our own economic development, we must get involved in mining to a great extent, agriculture, manufacturing. We are not in any of those areas that control economic development. So what voice do we have? Modern day voices depends on what money, how much money you have. No money, no voice, go home and shut up. And that is our reality. How do we begin to strategize so we can own the pillars of development, so we can have a voice? The colonizers have never left Africa. We must unite. We must strategize on how to take back the pillars of development of our African countries. Issue number 4, world trade policies. Dr. Chisango stated it very clearly. It's not by surprise that for some reason, Africans are just not allowed to add value to our natural resources. I know the story of West African cocoa beans. When African countries have tried to add value to the cocoa beans, the tariffs that were thrown on those value-added products was so high that it wasn't even worth them adding value, all by design, thanks to the World Trade Organization, because it's part of the cartel. Can you imagine cocoa alone, adding value to our cocoa beans out of Africa, how many jobs we could create? We got whole cities built on West African cocoa. Cadbury City, those British only have to add water and milk. Hershey City in Pennsylvania, they just have to add water and milk. Did you know that? Tell me, where are the coffee and cocoa plantations in Switzerland? Everywhere where you go around the world, Swiss coffee, Swiss chocolate. Where are those Swiss fields and the coffee fields in Switzerland? Why is the World Trade Organization giving a blind eye to such carnage? The World Trade Organization, my favorite one, is the microchips in our cell phones and laptops and computers and electric batteries. 65%, if not more, of the world coltan comes from DRC. If we can just say every microchip that needs coltan out of Africa must be manufactured in Africa, that alone will eliminate youth unemployment in Africa. It's that simple. But no, we're not allowed to. Their policies make it difficult. But also it goes back to, we're dealing with each little bitty country. We're negotiating with the little countries who are bulldozed and they have lost the game before it begins. It is all by design. The World Trade Organization, those policies must be disrupted. And it's through our understanding of those policies that we can also strategize on how to counter back in order to destroy those policies. At the end of the day, we own what we own. We don't need to manufacture chocolate for the Westerners. We could simply say the cocoa beans out of Africa are going to manufacture chocolate products for the Africans. And when we are now satisfied and every African has had access to every cocoa product, maybe, just maybe, we will export to you. That is the thinking that is needed. We got this, but we must understand what is being done in order for us to take those solid positions in a united way. But because of the mind job they did to us, see how difficult it's going to be difficult for us, how difficult it's going to be for us to get us to agree on something so basic. You all got to go to Europe and come back with bags full of chocolate, chocolate from Ghana, chocolate from Cote d'Ivoire. Your cocoa beans, you got to go to Europe to buy the value-added products. How sick and sad is that? The World Trade Organization, understand their policies, and you're on your way to understanding your Africa. Issue number 5, the world financial policies. Again, Dr. Chisano was very clear on that. The World Bank the Bretton Woods institutions, they were created with the sheer understanding that their success is based on our failure. May I repeat that? Their success is based on the premises that developing nations are failing. And the majority of those developing nations are in Africa. Everything the world needs is in Africa. So it is in their interest to see to it that we are forever chasing our tails. You can count on one hand any African country that at any time defaulted on their loan repayment. You can count on one hand. The majority of the African countries have never defaulted on their loan repayment. Why is it then that they're being forced to pay these high interest rates? Because you see, if we give them low interest rates, they just might pay off those loans. Then World Bank will not succeed. The Bretton Woods institutions will begin to fail. Countries that have completely, and I will not mention names, that have completely collapsed economies, countries outside Africa, they get better interest rates from the Bretton Woods institutions than African countries. Today, the average African country is spending over 33% of their GDP on loan repayment. That is more than what they're spending on education and healthcare combined. How is a country supposed to survive? You're not supposed to survive, African country. Wake up and smell the coffee. You're supposed to fail. You're part of the agenda, get it. What is it about this situation that you don't understand? Hello? It is that infuriating, my brothers and sisters. It's being done to us in point blank, broad daylight. And what really kills me this time, guess who is the face of all that abuse? It's people who look like me and you. It goes back to the mind. It goes back to the mind. Yes, you got the United Nations, who just give it a blind eye. Because who makes up the United Nations? Who makes up the United Nations? Look at the 5 members of the UN Security Council. Why is Africa the largest voting bloc, not part of the United Nations? You are not needed because how can they have defective people as part of the UN Security Council? Remember, they define us as defective people who need help, who need fixing. And that's why they send all those NGOs and they feel they have a right to go to Africa and fix Africa. Except they forget they destroyed Africa intentionally. So it's the mindset. UN is made up of the same colonizers. So naturally, you don't expect anything different. What should really happen is African countries should come together and say, this organization does not represent us. Thanks, but no thanks, we're out. We are going home. And until we can have African representation at the UN Security Council, goodbye. Because there is nothing Africans are benefiting from being members of the United Nations. That's a facade. So when they go into their own little meetings, where the Africans there, yes, sir, check. We're just being used. So we can validate their processes. So they can look good. We are global. We are looking at serving the world. Let's wake up and understand these systems. Issue number 6, in my humble opinion, is the brain drain out of Africa. The brain drain that started with the children of Africa being taken as slaves, followed by those who left Africa in search of greener pastures. The end result is, if we were to speak truth to power, my brothers and sisters, there is not any amount of money that can be put into Africa today that can deliver quality healthcare. There's not an amount of money that can put into Africa today that can deliver quality education. There's not an amount of money put into Africa today that can deliver good infrastructure. Why? As we speak, there is not a single African country that has the capacity to build a railway line. As we speak, There's not a single African country that has the capacity to build an airport. Collectively, however, capacity is there. Ghana, my favorite country, President Nana Addo, when he came to power, he thought building hospitals and renovating old ones was the way to address healthcare. Well, guess what? He soon found out that half of the wards are empty, not because there are no patients, but because there are no doctors. There are more Ghanaian doctors in New York City alone than in the entire country of Ghana. How then is President Nana Addo expected to improve healthcare in Ghana when the healthcare workers are outside the country? What is needed is the reversal of the brain drain. What is happening in Ghana with healthcare is happening with healthcare all over Africa. It's happening in education. The educators are outside Africa. The engineers are outside Africa. The expertise, we have some on the continent, but it's not enough. It's about capacity building. It's about repatriation of Africa's brains, and that's where you and I come in. I like to talk to the diaspora and say, all of you sometimes stop and think about the things that you complain about. You complain about China taking over Africa. Oh my God, they get heated. I've been in meetings where diaspora are heated, talking about China taking over Africa. And when they are done, I remember talking to a friend. They were complaining about their president having given 3 contracts to build a power plant to some Chinese. How could he do that? And I said, my sister, if you know of any diaspora organizations that are prepared to come together and put their financial resources and they have the expertise, I'll call the president and see if he can give up just one of those contracts. Do you know of any group that can do that? Of course, she burst out laughing. Oh, my sister, you know us diaspora, we are not organized. And I said, I want you to do one more thing for me. I need you to go to that part of the country where the Chinese are going to build that power plant. I need you to go tell grandmother who is 75 years old. She has never had electricity all her life. She has never had running water. She's never had a tarred road. I need you to go tell her that, grandma, I don't want you to have those amenities because I don't want the Chinese to do it. But furthermore, don't forget to tell her that even you don't want to do it either. So grandma, stay where you are in the darkness, walk miles to fetch water, get your roads to be muddy so you can't go anywhere when it rains. But goodbye, I'm going back to the West where I'm going to enjoy all those amenities. I said, that's what I want you to do, my sister. We complain without thinking. We want development to happen in Africa, but we don't want to do something about it. How do you expect development to go on in Africa if you're hiding in the diaspora? The Chinese are going to take the contract that you are supposed to take if you can just unite with your brothers and sisters. I was talking to the general manager for Zimbabwean Development Agency. He said, Ambassador, every day I go to the office, I find Chinese waiting in my office, wanting to know about investment opportunities in their country. He says, I rarely see a black face. What am I supposed to do? The president wants me to bring development. The people who are showing up at my door are Chinese. What am I supposed to do? On that, as diaspora, as Africans, on that. We are not uniting unity of purpose. Others are taking advantage of us because we are failing to unite. We are failing to understand the basis. So when you are complaining about the Chinese coming to take over Africa, the next question should be, what can I do? What do we need to do to block the Chinese from taking over Africa? And another one that really interests me. You hear people complain about the Chinese. Chinese are latecomers. Are you just now comfortable with old thieves that have been stealing from us for centuries? How come I don't hear the same outrage about China, about the colonizers from the West? In Africa, in our African village, may I humbly remind you that we got 2 thieves. We got an old thief that's been around for so long. We're just kind of used to him stealing. Now he doesn't even have to steal. We just hand it over to him. Those are the colonizers who never left. And then we got the new thief. And now the old thief is warning us about the new thief standing on what platform? And we're so stupid, we listen to what the old thief is telling us to do. No, the old thief is afraid of the new kid on the block. And they want to use us to fight their own battles. The reality is, my brothers and sisters, the old thief and the new thief, they both gotta go. It is just that simple. And we need to strategize. We need to understand the games that are being played. The brain drain out of Africa must be reversed. Those who are in a position for capacity building, we must come together. And that calls for unity of purpose. For us to succeed at the process of unity and strategizing on how to undo this scourge, it all starts with issue number one, which is the mind. The question then becomes, are you awake yet? Have you woken from the slumber of over 600 years? Or are you still fast asleep? Until you're fully awake and you understand the issues of the root, and that until the issues of the root are addressed, nothing, and I mean nothing we do, is going to address the issues about the root in any sustainable way. Perfect example. We change African leaders all the time. Tell me one African country that has changed in any sustainable way because we changed a president. If a president is liking them, I love you for 6 months. I was laughing at Malawi 2 weeks after the president won, they were after him. They wanted him gone. It's because the issues of the root have never been addressed. And quite often in our deliberations, we completely bypass the issues of the root. If we are to understand our Africa in any sustainable way, while we write lots of books and policies and plans, let's make sure we understand our beautiful African tree of life. The issues above the root and the issues below the root. When we understand them fully and we address them with a mind that is fully awoken, we can begin to address our Africa in some sustainable way. Until then, until Africa wakes up, the abuse and colonization of our continent will continue. I would hope that we will make a commitment, that we will be the generation that's going to put an end to this scourge. That 20 years from now, we can all look at our grandchildren and children and say, children, there were problems with our Africa. And this is what we did. Our brothers and sisters, we got together. We strategized. We pulled our funds together. While the mission may not be complete, this is where we are living the struggle. And this is where you need to organize with your little brothers and sisters and pick up from where we left. Aluta continua. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much, Ambassador, for that presentation and for stressing the fact that unless we renew our minds, all the other things that you have mentioned cannot adequately be addressed. Truly, Ginago Africa, it is time. Thank you ever so much. We will at this moment have some questions to any of our speakers, and you can direct them to the speakers. Please, as you raise your hand, if you would please, if you have a question, and give us your name, tell us the country you're calling from or connecting with us from. And if you could please be brief, if you could just ask the question very briefly, and not so much on the commentary, because that'll enable us to have more people on and answer more questions. Thank you. If you could raise your hand on the sides, it would help. Thank you. There are quite a few hands. Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Hello, Ambassador. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. And I have the privilege to be part of this meeting today. And I'm calling from abroad, from the United Kingdom, but I'm Cameroonian. And we've been having these talks and listening to the emotional appeal to the consciousness of Blackness and also African country, what it is that we have as a task. But every time we hear this, there is a sense of magnitude of the problem that is ahead of us without knowing how to start. Will you tell us, because we know we have to regroup, is it any particular way? Is it any direction? Is it something that needs to be in place? Because as from us, I come from the family of Umyobe who fought for independence in Cameroon. And I know the struggle because the story was told and we lived it. But we are like lost because definitely the destroy in our region in Cameroon was actually the region that they wrote down that never to be developed. And we know that. Now that we see that there is many more like you, ambassadors, standing and calling, we have the courage. But where do we start from? How can we proceed?
Is that a question to me?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, again, the process of proceeding, it starts with precisely what Dr. Cooper and Dr. Chisano are trying to accomplish here. Knowledge, understanding of the issues, and beginning to strategize. I liken this to, for those of you from Zimbabwe, this is what we call Padare. Padare is the place, the gathering place in a village. It is usually under a tree. That's when the elders come to talk about the issues, the problems they need to deal with in the village. They will stay at the Padare until solutions to the village problems are found from within, not from outside, from within. So look at what is going on today as our form of Padare. Our chief, Sister Coupe, and his assistant, Dr. Chisano. And I intentionally put our chief as Sister Coupe for a reason. They're bringing us to the table to discuss the issues of our village. It's going to take you waking up, understanding the issues. So as you go on about your business, whatever you do professionally, you can begin to make a difference. As you go home and you talk to your children who are now going to be used as instrument of self-destruction, let's use an example of elections. It's your children who are being sent out there to go die for a process that's already been decided on. I'm talking about us getting the depth of understanding that we can no longer chase our tails, that we will be smarter, that we will refuse to see these NGOs who pretend to be nice to you. They're the ones being sent to undermine us. See them and know them for who they are. Don't think they are nice people because they're not. Know your world. When they begin to know that, no, those Africans, they're no longer foolish anymore. See how quickly they'll begin to change. So we continue with platforms like this, which is why I'm so glad that Dr. Chisano, Dr. Coupe, they spoke as blatantly as they did. Can you imagine if we had many more platforms, people speaking like this? We take it to the schools, the educational systems to re-educate the African, where we can all truly be about us. We don't need validation from anybody. The problem is we're too busy wanting validation from those who look like us. No, we don't look like us. We don't need validation from anybody. They don't need validation from us when they go on about their business. Do you think the Chinese stop to worry about what Black people think? Do you think the white people stop to think about what Black people think. The Indians, the Mexicans. No, they do their thing. Let's bring focus on their thing. But it's only us. We are waiting for their approval. If we don't do this, this is what's going to happen. Let's wait for their approval. Our educators, our professors cannot be tenured unless their papers, their research work is sent to England, is sent to the United States. I once addressed them, I said, really? I didn't know that. You mean to tell me professors in Egypt cannot review the work from professors from Southern Africa and vice versa? You will not get tenured in Africa today as a professor until your research work is reviewed outside Africa. How insane is that? So yes, I did tell the educators I was addressing, I said, if you all cannot trust each other, why should we trust you with our children that you stand in front of every day? But when people are awoken, these are educators we're talking about. Presidents of universities. No one in their boardroom tables has ever said, guys, this is insane. Why are we taking our intellectual property to the West? The average professor has to submit anywhere from 15 to 40 research papers to be tenured in any African university as we speak today. Do you realize how much intellectual property is being sent out? And next thing you know, some professor at Yale, at Harvard, at Oxford, they just tweak a little bit of your own research and boom, they got a patent out of your own work. Why is it that this is 2021? No one in those boardroom tables at the universities has ever said this is insanity of the highest order and it must stop. Goes back to the mind. So yes, my sister, if you are a professor, start that conversation, challenge the president. This is insanity. Send out a petition. How many of you even know what I'm telling you right now? Most of you didn't know. And these are the best minds, the universities, and they're doing something so dumb. That's where we begin, my sister, the mind, and looking around you for things that you can change in your own capacity and collectively.
Thank you for that. We have a question here from Dr. Tony Alabi from Nigeria. The question is directed at you, Ambassador. And the question is, how can this redefinition be globalized and localized simultaneously for the African continent? Thank you.
I had to sound like a broken record. Back again to these platforms, because it's about education, education, education. When one is awoken, like the sister who asked the first question, let's suppose she's a school teacher. At her level, in her capacity, she could start by demanding that we get Afrocentric textbooks in her library. But she will do that because she's now awoken and she's armed with knowledge that she can defend her position and show whoever tries to challenge her to say, these are the facts. So knowledge and understanding of our history is where we have failed. We have been intentionally miseducated. We have intentionally been lied to. The sad thing is, it has taken us centuries to appreciate the lies. But when we all wake up and realize that these were lies, that we're not inferior to anybody, when we can all build that confidence that we are proud Africans and we're not inferior to anyone, and I'm repeating this because that is a serious problem. The average African is afraid of the white man and white woman. Why? For no reason whatsoever. Get rid of that. See how easy it will be for you to fight back. Get rid of that fear, unfounded fear. So knowledge and understanding of the genesis of why we are of the mindset that we are today will make the process easier of healing. And once we are awoken, it doesn't matter where we end up. We will make the right decisions about ourselves as individuals, as families, as neighborhoods, as countries, and as a continent. But it starts with an awoken mind.
Thank you. We have another question from Dr. Paul Bube. Dr. Paul.
Well presented, Your Excellency. I have a question. I'm actually the national coordinator for World Economic Congress in Zambia, and I'm also the bishop of the Revival Methodist Church. My question is, when will you, Professor Lumumba and Dr. Chisango, sit down to strategize how we shall, implement this big vision to come to reality? Because I've seen there are so many like minds who are dotted around Africa in different countries. They are doing their good work in their territories. But I'm looking for a time when Professor Lumumba, Your Excellency, Dr. Chisango, Apostle Chisango, and others come together and we support you and move on. When will that be?
I will let Dr. Chisango take that one. Back to you, Dr. Chisango. Please take that one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, Ambassador, for deferring. When I spoke in the session, I also spoke about the need to put these three pillars in place. The pillar of emphatic structure. We need the structures that are emphatic. I talked about getting away from petty and piecemeal measures and interventions that we were left to be busy with in extension of the colonial and neo-colonial agenda. So that means that really calls for what Your Excellency, the Ambassador, you've just spoken to say, we need to create our own institutions, but our own institutions, we must also be willing to recognize them. We must be willing to recognize our own institutions. And that does not start at institutional level. It starts at very basic things like, I'm yet to be told about why Africans did not die in the large numbers that they were expected to die from COVID. And the reason is very simple. If we choose to be just simply religious, we'll say God protected us. But I don't want to be that mystical and just mythical. I want to be scientific. What method did God use to protect us? He used the herbs, natural, the environment, the ecosystem of herbs and food systems that are medicinal, that are in Africa. But now, you see, our laboratories, our media, our ministries of health have not given stature, they've not given structure to those discoveries and endowments that have saved millions and tens of millions that were relegated to die. Now, for example, right now, the vaccine is not as widespread in Africa as it is in Europe and America. But Africans are still so, some of them just coughed once or sneezed once, and then they just went to that usual herb and natural medicinal thing that is just behind the kitchen in the raw area, and they survived and they just moved on. Now, but we have not given stature to those solutions that are available. We have not recognized our own and not recognized what we have been endowed with. So we need to brand, we need to recognize what is our own, and we need to globalize what is our own. It's not enough to be just having solutions and you keep them in front of your rural village. We must globalize these things. We must decolonize our media, not just the research institutions, but our media, our journalists, our writers in Africa. They must tell our story and they must take our story. That's why we must also decolonize our entrepreneurs.
Madame Fikile, I think we lost Dr. Chisango. Maybe you can ask the next question, and we just hope that he'll come back.
Okay, certainly.
Well, actually, I could finish the answer. I think the answer had to do with when are we going to bring myself, Professor Dr. Chisano and Dr. Lumumba. That's up to our leaders like Dr. Coupe, Dr. Chisano, to converge a meeting. And so it's up to our leadership to bring us together. And I just really love this platform. I love the work that you're doing, Dr. Coupe, and your entire team. These conversations are so necessary. So we're counting on you to bring us together. How about that? I'm passing it right back to you, Dr. Coupe. Sorry about that, but I'm giving it back because I think you'll do a better job at organizing us than us individually.
Thank you for that, Ambassador. We will take one more question. Mr. Stephen Ngando, if you could please ask your question, sir, and indicate to whom you're addressing the question and be brief, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, the ambassador and all the organizers. Very inciting indeed, very challenging. My question is, why do we find that it's very difficult for African Mind to fund African ideas? So in the end, you find that you have very brilliant African projects, African ideas, African Mind, but at the end, you find that there's no funding to it. And that leaves a chance for African minds to go and look for resources elsewhere. What can we do to change that narrative? Thank you. I'm addressing it to the ambassador. Thank you so much.
It goes back again to what I'm preaching with the African Diaspora Development Institute. I'm constantly reminding them, 1 million people with $1, that's $1 million. 1 million people with $10, that's $10 million. 1 million people with $1,000, that's $1 billion. There are about 10 million continental Africans in the United States. There are about, in total, African diaspora, including African Americans, we're looking at about 50 to 55 million. If we can just get 2 million of those. There are about 7 to 8 million continental Africans in Europe. If we just take another 1 million or 2 out of all that. Say tops out of the 500, there are many more Africans in the Middle East, in China, in Australia, New Zealand. Let's say out of the almost 400 million African diaspora, if we just take 5 million, and each one commits to $85 a month for 1 year, that's it. We're sitting on 5 billion. We can take that 5 billion. $1 billion is a lot of money to spend. We spend 1 billion in 1 year. The other 4 billion, we monetize it, and we could double it every year. The game is over. It will be that simple, my brothers and sisters. 5 million people committing to $85 a month for 1 year. And there are so many of us who are able to do that. Many will do even more. But we need unity of purpose. Where we have failed it, we haven't had an entity that was trusted, that could bring us together so we can actualize some of this. That is what my organization, African Diaspora Development Institute, that is what we are doing. I'm going to share with you something that the diaspora did that brought tears to my eyes. There was a program we wanted to get into, and the program was coming to an end. I called my board and I told them I need 500,000. Actually, initially I needed $350,000. To make a long story short, in 4 days, I had 500,000. These were diaspora who had been with me even before I left the African Union. These are diaspora who were awoken, who understand the need. Money was flying. I couldn't believe it. The 2 hours that we met, I raised the first 200,000 in 2 hours. Are you getting my point? So when people are fully awoken and they trust the leadership and they understand why this must be done, people will give. So yes, it saddens me to see young entrepreneurs like you, my son, struggle to find help. And quite often what you're needing is really peanuts in the greater scheme of things. So through ADDI, we are saying, we're going to organize and we are having unity of purpose. We are simply saying the mistrust of yesteryear is history. We believe in each other. We believe in what we can do collectively. We needed a starting point. Again, the reason we have failed to have that starting point, it goes back to the Berlin Conference, because everybody talks about, oh, I'm from Kenya, I'm from Nigeria, and even within Nigeria, I'm Igbo, I'm Yoruba. So those divisions that were intentionally put on us, we must understand them. At ADDI, we are saying we are all Black people, regardless of where we are born. We don't talk about what country you were born. You're a Black person, that's it. That's all that matters to me. This is a Black agenda, and we're gonna put programs in place to push the Black agenda. The Chinese are pushing their Chinese agenda. They don't care where you come from in China. The Mexicans, the Indians, they may not like each other personally, but they push their agenda because their survival, their strength is in that unity. So now we have an entity that we are saying we have a Black agenda and we're going to push the Black agenda. So in my own small way, starting with the Africans in the diaspora, this is what we are doing. Africa is a challenge in a way. It's very difficult to tell a businessman in Malawi to think continental. It's very difficult to tell a businessman in Djibouti to think continental. They're struggling to make a living there, and the continent is just too huge for them. The entity that should be dealing with these issues and calling a spade is the African Union. If the African Union can just start to speak about the ails and the things that are being done to the continent, that is the entity that has the voice to do precisely that. It is precisely what I tried to do when I was the permanent representative. I knew I was treading on thin water, on thin ice, but I did not care. I did not go there for a job. I was given a platform to represent, and I set out to educate the African diaspora who were within my jurisdiction. And I was there to speak the truth and nothing but the truth. That I did. So yes, to answer your question, we have not had an entity that has sought to bring us together, which is what our Pan-African fathers had hoped to do back in 1963, to have an entity that truly represented Africa, so we can begin to talk about our issues as Africans. But we're working towards that. And my heart bleeds when I see the suffering that our young youth are going through. I've seen many of you, inventions like you can not even imagine. Intelligent young men, but all that intelligence is gonna go to waste because you don't have funding. Some of the ones that I've happened to be exposed to, when you look at what is keeping them from succeeding, you're talking peanuts, peanuts. So we're hoping in our own small way as ADDI, we can begin to help the few that we can, but we do have a starting point. And I was truly humbled by the response that I got from my board, because they understand. I would like to think all of them are fully awake. They know that it is an uphill battle, but each and every one of them is committed to playing their part. So my heart bleeds for you, my son, but I feel your pain and I hear you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, and thank you for the questions that we have had this evening. I hope and I'm sure you have been answered. At this point, it is my pleasure and my privilege to invite Dr. Kupe, who's going to give us concluding remarks and the way forward. Dr. Pearl Kupe is a lawyer by profession and an activist at heart. She is passionate about Africa and about transformational leadership, community development, active citizenry, and nation building. She sits on various international boards and forums, including the Africa Women Leaders Forum with Reverend Jesse Jackson, and is the visionary and founding international president of the Global Forum of Women Entrepreneurs. Dr. Pearl.
Thank you so much. Let me start by greeting all our esteemed speakers and guests, His Royal Majesty Oba Dokun Thompson, the Oloni of Etioni, and Her Excellency Ambassador Arikana Chihombori Kwao, President of the ADDI, African Diaspora Development Initiative. Dr. Alex Chisango, I hope he's back or coming back soon, the President of the World Economic Congress, and our gracious moderator as well, Me Fikile Debu, and to all our Global Forum for Women Entrepreneurs executives and partners, a very warm greeting to all who have joined us from various nations. Redefining Africa in the 21st century for transformation. This was our theme for our virtual conference. Speakers have done great justice to the theme. I want to say also that this theme was provoked by our international chairperson on our International Advisory Board, who is, of course, His Royal Majesty Oba Dokun Thompson. He is very passionate about redefining Africa, and so passionate that in 2015, he started an initiative, the African National Rulers Initiative, ANR, which was focused on redefining Africa to address issues of conflict, issues of poverty, issues of health, issues of education, housing, and environment to achieve sustainable primary socioeconomic development, especially in rural areas. And so redefining Africa in the 21st century is a theme that he really encouraged us to take on, and we took it on with great joy and great thanksgiving. It was important for us to have this conversation to also see what solutions, blueprints, and strategic alliances may come out of this conversation. So, Your Excellency, Ambassador Arikana, I'm so glad that one of the questions that was asked was where to from here? Why not have further conversations and collaborations? So I hope when I do call, I call you and Professor Pierre Lumumba as well, who also happens to be a dear friend, as well as Dr. Chisango. I hope when I come knocking on your doors, that those doors will not be shut. We've made a commitment and we need to follow up on that commitment. As I previously said before, that there's an African proverb that says, until the lion learns how to write, the hunter will always be glorified. And we know that in this instance, the lion is Africa, and the hunter is all those who have exploited Africa for their own benefit. In the process of exploiting her,
They've painted a story and a narrative that suited their purposes and would justify their looting of the continent. They told a story and a narrative of famine, of hunger, of poverty, of uncivilization, of war. And this meeting and many other meetings that have been held over the years seek to change this narrative. Africa and Africans must change the narrative and must tell their own story, which is a story of unbelievable wealth, as we've already heard, in terms of the platinum, in terms of the chrome and the chromium, unbelievable wealth, resources, mineral wealth, agricultural wealth, medicinal resources, cultural resources, historical resources, and human resources. A narrative of respect and esteem for one another and communal benefit over individual benefit and survival of the fittest, which is a Western concept. We started off this program with our youth because we're very conscious of the fact that our youth need to be part of this narrative. And as you have already heard, Africa has the largest number of youth. So our youth must definitely be a key part of this conversation. And I want to say categorically that the youth are not our future. The youth are our present. And so in GFWE, we have made sure that they have a voice, they have a platform to articulate their ideas, their innovation, to express themselves, and that they are part of the solution. Not only youth must be part of the narrative, but women. And I'm so glad, Ambassador Arikana, that you kept reiterating women, that women must also be a part of redefining Africa. Not only a part, but they must be at the forefront. Rwanda has been redefining her own narrative in a post-genocide era. Rwanda leads. She leads the world with the highest number of women in the national legislature. Women hold 64% of seats in the lower house of Rwanda's national legislature. So clearly, there is some connection between Rwanda's success and the percentage of women in key decision-making posts. So youth must not only be part of this redefining Africa, but women also must be a part of redefining Africa. Any nation that wants to succeed economically, socially, and politically must empower its women and must include its women at all levels. As a key part of the Global Forum for Women Entrepreneurs mandate is to ensure that youth and women are a part of redefining Africa in the 21st century for transformation. You have also heard from our Global Forum for Women Entrepreneurs International Coordinator about the number of community development projects we have started in various nations to empower people at a grassroots level and to equip them for sustainable success. Ambassador Arikana just told us right now about, how one can mobilize and generate finances from amongst ourselves. And that is what we have done as Global Forum for Women Entrepreneurs. We only just received our tax exemption certificate. So the funds that we are using to educate 200 children in Malawi every year, to help the widows in Malawi, to help the early childhood marriage project we are in collaboration with Chief Teresa Kachinda Moto to help anti-trafficking projects, to help feed 1,200 children daily in South Africa. Those funds come from our own pockets, not from any government, not from any NGO. They come from our pockets. Our pockets. So you are right again, Ambassador Arikana. that yes, we can do it amongst ourselves, everybody bringing the little that they have. If I was preaching, I would preach from 2 Kings 4 to say, you know, what do you have in the house? It starts with what you have in your house. What rod do you have in your hand? Bring the resources and let's do this together. Simunye, we are one. You have also heard about some of the investment plans from our international coordinator that are in the pipeline, investments, funds, and hubs that will take us to another dimension. Redefining Africa will also mean creating new blueprints and renegotiating certain agreements that have been made over the years. As a lawyer, I understand the binding nature of contracts, and Africa has been hindered by many unethical and immoral contracts. It's time to remove those still existing contracts so that entrepreneurs in Africa are given a real opportunity to be successful. I would love to see some of my legal colleagues being mobilized in the various nations to take on some of these unethical contracts. We've heard also from Ambassador, from Dr. Chisango, who, you know, I work very closely with on the World Economic Congress and on the Africa Reconstruction Project. He has gone to great detail to give us great ideas, of course, which my sister, Ambassador Arikana, also built on. Talking about redefining Africa, we cannot do it until and unless we address the underlying issues. What are those underlying issues? Underlying issues dealing with slavery mentality, dealing with self-hate, dealing with the Berlin Conference and the divisions that came out of that conference, and strategizing on how to take back our identity and how to take back control. Issues around world trade policies and brain drain. Dr. Arikana gave an example around cocoa, and it may interest you, Dr. Arikana, to know that our international chairperson is actually very much involved in cocoa in Nigeria. His family, the royal family, were the first to start bringing in and planting cocoa. 120 years of cocoa they've been involved in. He is the chairman of Etioni Development Group and the organizer of the annual Cocoa Festival and Eco Chocolate Show. So when you use the example of cocoa, you were really using an example that is close to our heart. My mother comes from Botswana, and this is another nation that has attempted to redefine itself. In 1966, Botswana was on the list of the 25 poorest nations in the world. And the discovery of diamonds in Botswana was a game changer. And initially, De Beers took complete control of all those diamonds and had the majority share of Botswana's wealth. But over the years, Botswana has slowly been changing the narrative and redefining some issues, renegotiating the contract to ensure that Botswana enjoys a larger share of her own wealth. Botswana went even as far as to relocate the headquarters. Imagine the Botswana Diamonds and your headquarters are in London. She had to renegotiate her headquarters back to the country of origin, which is Gaborone. Not only that, she renegotiated the terms so that the diamonds would now be polished in Botswana and they would be cut in Botswana. We're talking about value add. We're talking about creation of employment so that we can't take our resources to create employment outside of Africa. These are redefining the narrative when you take back control of your own resources and you determine how the value add comes up and you make sure that there are jobs created, first of all, in the country of origin. So I do want to thank you so much. These are just closing remarks, concluding remarks. Once again, I extend my very great gratitude to all our speakers, to our Global Forum for Women Entrepreneurs International Board Chairperson again, His Royal Majesty Obadokun Thompson, who has been such an encouragement, you know, he does everything for us almost. And he's been so encouraging and so positive. So we want to extend our appreciation to him and Her Excellency, Ambassador Arikana. Like I said, I commit to knocking on your door and to the door of our brother, PLO Lumumba. In fact, I will text him. I think after this, I did send him the flyer of this conference, and he did wave back and he said, long time no see. So I will definitely be sure to send him the recording and to send him a message to say that, Ginako, it's time. We have to take this up another level. But I want to thank also Dr. Chisango. I don't know if he's back here, but to thank him very much for being a part of this. And we continue our work together on the World Economic Congress and also on the Africa Reconstruction. I know he has already approached me privately to say that we need to work together and have a memorandum of understanding together. He would like us to sign an MOU as GFWE and as World Economic Congress. So it starts there with strategic alliances and partnerships. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Let us not build in silos. Let us not try to take credit, but harness our strengths, our talents, our gifts, our resources. And unity is the key. And unity is what will make us win. Ginako, it's time. Arieng, Simunye, we are one. Let's do this together. So thank you to all who have been on this. We have had a healthy turnout. At one point, we were almost 200, I think about almost 190. So we're so grateful for you coming, and we will definitely send the recordings out. I see that many have put their emails there. Please leave your email contacts in the chat. If you would like to connect with Global Forum for Women Entrepreneurs in any form or fashion, or be advised of our coming events, if you would like a recording of this, but I want to leave everyone with a charge, which is what Ambassador Arikana has already said. It starts with you on the ground. Don't just look at leaders, don't just look up there. Everybody has something that they can do within their given sphere, within their given jurisdiction. There's something that you can do in terms of educating, in terms of having knowledge, in terms of inspiring, in terms of provoking and taking charge where you are. So we want to leave you with that message, and we are so grateful. And we're just saying that this is just the beginning. Watch this space. There's still more to come. Africa will be redefined. The tree of life will have life once again and will bloom, and Africa must be that breadbasket, and Africa must bloom, but it starts with you. So God richly, richly bless you. I feel like I can't leave here without speaking my language a little. So I have to say, in Shona, we would say Majuita. So we are so grateful to all of you for coming on board. And we look forward to more programs like this, and also to taking this to another dimension and another level. Thank you so much for all being here. We have our last speaker, I think, who's just going to give a vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pearl. Thank you so much. It's the GFWE International President. And yes, indeed, we have just our last speaker, Ms. Lulama Koza. She's going to give the vote of thanks. And she is a businesswoman and entrepreneur who works in the property field. She is based in Johannesburg, South Africa, and she's the Deputy President of the Global Forum of Women Entrepreneurs, South Africa chapter. Thank you, Lulama. There we go.
His Royal Majesty Obadakun Thompson, Her Excellency Ambassador Arikana Chimbohori Kwa, Dr. Alex Chisango, Dr. Pearl Coupe, Ms. Ufoma Ekpecham, Mefikile Dibok, GFW executives, honorable guests, good evening. It gives me great pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks on this auspicious occasion, the Global Forum Women Entrepreneurs Annual Conference, Redefining Africa in the 21st Century for Transformation. I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to all our speakers, namely His Royal Majesty Obadakun Thompson, Her Excellency Ambassador Arikana Chihombori Kwao, Dr. Pearl Coupe, Dr. Alex Chisango, Ms. Fikile Dibak is our moderator who's done excellently well, Ms. Ufoma Ekpecham and Masichaba Mpete. Thank you to everyone who has made this virtual conference a success, especially to those that have been involved in the background on the building up of this day, our GFW family globally, the guest speakers, and to all attendees of this conference. After the sharing of such wealth of information by our guests, our honorable guest speakers, we certainly know who we are and where we are coming from, indeed. Indeed, we can boldly say, as His Royal Majesty Obadakun Thompson shared the poem in the beginning of his speech, Africa, my Africa. Her Excellency has put the challenge on the table to all of us, resurrecting the African tree of life. Let us be the generation that puts the end to the scourge indeed. Thank you to everyone, and I'm going to be closing in prayer. If you can all pray. Father, we thank you for this conference. We thank you, Lord, that you were present in our midst, oh God. Thank you, Lord, for the words that have been uttered, that we have been challenged, provoked, and also improved to the next level as Africans. We thank you, Father, for what will come out of these deliberations. Thank you for our guest speakers. As people, oh God, go back to their respective lives, we will not forget, oh God, the words that have been imparted and the challenges that have been spoken through the words. We thank you in the mighty name of our dear Lord Jesus Christ, we pray. And I declare the conference closed. Africa, Kinago indeed. Thank you.
Before we go, can I just, before everybody goes, I've just received word that His Excellency, Honorable Guy Mayers from St. Lucia, the High Commissioner to the UK, is here. And are you still there, Your Excellency? If he's there, we would love you to share a few remarks on the Caribbean and Africa. If you are still there, please.
Oops. Yes, I'm still here. I don't know if you can you?
Thank you very much.
I'm here. Thank you very much for allowing me to say a few words. Unfortunately, I got the invitation a bit late, and I was also following the funeral of Prince Philip and other preparing for other meetings, and but I still thought I should come on and at least listening. So I think I got the last just about less than an hour of your meeting, but I think it was very interesting. I thank you very much, Your Majesty Oba Thompson, for sending me the invitation. He and I have been having quite a few discussions on the link between Africa and the Caribbean. It is always good to listen to the views of my cousins, who I always say left, who are in Africa. We in the Caribbean were brought to the Caribbean in chains, and we have left our long lost cousins behind. And I think as we seek to develop Africa, as we seek to develop the Caribbean, it is incumbent upon us to build that relationship with our long lost cousins and not only depend on the West. They want to continue to take their pound of flesh, but I think it is important that, yes, we know we are small. We know sometimes people feel that we are insignificant because we don't have the millions of people that the West have, but they continue to exploit the minerals and whatever they can exploit from Africa. But I want to impress upon you and welcome you to the Caribbean. His Majesty and I have been talking about bringing the Cocoa Festival to the Caribbean and starting with St. Lucia. And I've always extended every time I can the invitation to my friends, my family. I consider you my family in Africa, to come and explore instead of always going to the US or the UK or the Middle East for vacation. Come and explore the Caribbean as an area that you can enjoy our warm and friendly hospitality, and we can reciprocate. I want to see us develop the links, both trade and vocation links between Africa and the Caribbean. And obviously, I can say we can start with St. Lucia. We can start with, I know that there are flights to Barbados, there are flights to other Caribbean, Jamaica. But we just wanted you to know that we are here and that we have the same issues that you have. We were colonized. We were brought here from many parts of Africa. I have been to some parts of Africa. I've been just in 2018, I actually came to Nigeria, and I have been having discussions with, again, building trade and relationship with Nigeria. I've been to South Africa. I've also been to Zimbabwe. I would love to tour a lot more of Africa and see how we can build on the synergies that exist among our people. Right now, I'm based in the UK representing St. Lucia as our High Commissioner. But I want to see that we, even in the UK, that we can, those of us who are here, we have been working as a CARICOM group to see how we can engage our African cousins and build that bridge and build that relationship. So I just want to thank you very much for being able to participate in your discussion this evening. And I look forward to continuing building that bridge, reconnecting with our cousins. You left, our ancestors were taken in chains to the Caribbean. Now we're free to move to Africa. You're free to come to the Caribbean. Let's build that bridge and enjoy reuniting our families. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. We definitely will be taking up that invitation as soon as lockdown is over. I think the Caribbean will be one of our first stops. So thank you so much. We're very grateful, and you were very gracious to speak on an impromptu basis. So thank you very much. Once again, friends and family, thank you for joining us, and look forward to hearing from us. We will be sending the recording out, and if you've dropped your email address there, you will get a copy of the recording. So have a good evening, and thank you for joining us. God richly bless you as we log out with this video.
I got Womp on the beat.